Today we're taking a look at a topic from Corey Richmond. They wanted us to talk about our favorite villains in the Zelda series. Well, we should talk about Ganon first, since he is the Zelda villain.
Vaati, I never really cared for Vaati much.
I think his design is cool, like his humanoid form is cool.
It's more interesting to start to talk about some of the one-off characters, I think. Link's Awakening, I guess we'll kind of throw that away.
I think the concept is cool. The concept of all these nightmares are manifestations of like the Windfish's dream, and all the lore with that is interesting. So
yeah,
definitely a good footnote.
So I think the first major villain, I guess, would be Majora?
Yeah.
Or the Moon? Or Skull Kid? The Mask?
The Mask is definitely who's putting all the things in motion, I think.
He's symbolic of all the evil that's happening in the world.
Yeah.
As well. Like all the bad things.
People you talk to are like, oh, the Skull Kid came here and mucked with some stuff. I think it's one of the more developed characters, especially for the era, the N64 era.
It's one of those ones that, for a villain, it's hard to wrap my head around that the villain is not a person or a being.
Well, it sort of is a being.
Yeah.
It manifests in the end
of
the game.
It's kind of silly in the end, I think.
I do like you get these three different forms, and it's still like, was the final form like what Majora is, or like what is Majora's true form, I wonder?
I don't know. I think those are just three of many forms that we saw.
Because none of them you fight are called Majora, you know?
Right.
They're all like these different manifestations of what Majora could be.
Right. I wonder if there's a light side of him. If there's Majora's love.
I don't want to know.
There's, I guess, General Onyx from Oracle Seasons and Varin from Oracle of Ages.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impartial to Oracle of Ages since it's one of my favorite games, and actually I think has a deeper storyline. You know, Varin is a being, but it can take the body of other characters. So for a while it takes Nehru.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like possessed Nehru, and you actually fight Nehru. And then later on it takes the form of the Queen Ambi. Then there's storyline elements to, like, well, we can't really kill Queen Ambi, because if you kill Queen Ambi in the past, who's possessed by Varin, then it creates this ripple effect of what's going to happen in the future. Because like all of her descendants, including like one of the side characters, Ralph, will just not exist.
Yeah.
I always like those possession type story arcs a little bit, especially with time travel involved as well.
I think with with Majora and even the nightmares, it creates a more interesting idea of what the story is, as opposed to just like defeat this bad guy.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's it gives like a more, like in Oracle of Ages, it gives more of a moral dilemma.
Yeah, like, definitely.
To kill the bad guy, you got to kill your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was what made Varin a little more interesting with the storyline. But and Onyx, I think Onyx seemed to be feared more, and he's got a look to him. He's got the little chain, and he's got the giant mask. Like, he looks scary. Unfortunately, with both Varin and Onyx, it turns out that they're just kind of lesser bosses in the end. Because the linked game, I guess the real ending of those games, you end up fighting Twin Rova, who are trying to resurrect Ganon.
Does that ruin the story with the other bosses in that game?
No, because I actually think, like, if you just play Oracle of Ages with no linked game at all, there's very little with Twin Rova and Ganon. Virtually non-existent. That is a standalone.
You could play it and not, if you didn't know there was another game, you would feel satisfied with the story.
Right, yeah.
It's more of a bonus.
Yeah, there's almost like just little hints of to be continued type deal.
Okay.
Now, if you're playing the linked game, so if you've been Ages and now you're playing Seasons boss will feel a little watered down because there's a lot more references to a greater evil.
Okay.
But if you played Seasons first, you wouldn't get that feeling.
Okay.
So they're standalone. They're okay.
There's another game that people would feel like Ganon's presence kind of ruined it a little bit.
Twilight
Princess.
I would say if we had to pick our favorite, I'm going to say my favorite Zelda villain is Zant for the first 4 dungeons of the game. For the first half of the game. Everything basically through the Lake Bed Temple.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zant is my favorite villain because I think he's legitimately scary. He's got a great look with the mask before he's unmasked.
Mm-hmm.
And, you see that scene where him and the Shadow Beast like overtake Hyrule Castle,
mm-hmm.
and like Zelda has to drop her rapier, and it's like they control the world.
I remember there's a brief moment where his like face part of his mask comes down.
You see his tongue.
You see part of it, yeah. You see his like face, and there's something like, it reminds me of like in the old Star Wars where you'd like see like part of Darth Vader's head, and you're like, what's under there,
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool moment.
So I thought he was legitimately scary.
Mm-hmm.
His design was awesome.
Yes.
Everything they did with Zant was fantastic for the first half of the game. I felt there was no need to have Ganon in that story.
I think Zant's presence still served Midna's story pretty well, but yeah, they didn't have to do that with Ganon, I don't think. Ganondorf.
Right. And the Zant battle, he just becomes so silly.
Yeah.
When you go watch that Zant fight, it's hard to take him serious.
Mm-hmm.
He's just dancing around, wailing around. Like, that's not the Zant that they were presenting throughout much of the game.
Yeah.
So Zant is my favorite villain, though, pre-ending. So let's jump forward to the DS games.
Sure.
I think we could throw Phantom Hourglass off the window with this one because Bellum is not a very intriguing character. There's really very little. You're not too familiar with the Phantom Hourglass, but I don't know anybody in the world that thinks Bellum is one of the greatest Zelda villains.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out there, which you're not,
just wait and see.
Yeah. There's gonna be an army of Bellum fans. But Spirit Tracks, on the other hand, I think they had a lot of pseudo villains. Chancellor Cole at the beginning of the game, you can totally tell he's evil right from the start.
Yeah.
And half hour into the game, it's revealed he is evil. But they have a lot of evil characters like Burn, or it's known as Staven, I believe, in the European version, is like the muscle behind Chancellor Cole,
mm-hmm.
only to find out like he turns to be a good guy later on.
Yeah.
And like helps you. But he was a good villain early on. And then the greater villain is Malladus, but it's one of those, it's very similar to a lot of the Zelda games where you don't really hear about Malladus until towards the end. I really like Malladus' design. It's very reminiscent of like Beast Ganon.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's a giant like warthog or whatever. So it looks just like Beast Ganon.
Well, we got Girahim.
Yeah, that brings us to Girahim, who I think is probably the most like polished villain, I would say.
Yeah.
Right up there with Zant in terms of my favorite villains, because this is a reoccurring theme with me. But like, I love characters that are prevalent throughout the entirety of the game. That's important to me for character development. And Girahim, you first see Girahim when you're in the Faron Woods. He's like following you, like towards the Skyview Temple.
Yeah.
There's like little scenes where you just see like a leg or something, and then he like disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of toys with you a little bit. I like his sarcasm and his like all his words are It's like, I'm filled with anger and rage. Like,
yeah, he's the most like expressive villain, and he spends the whole game like he has a motivation he's talking about.
Yeah,
a lot of the game.
Yeah,
and unlike Zant, his ending, I don't think, undoes his greatness as a villain.
I think of the ending of Skyward Sword as 3 boss battles. There is the enemy gauntlet, followed by Girahim, followed by Demise.
Yeah.
And so he is one of the final bosses. He's not like somebody who just disappears, 75, 80% through the game, like, Zant was there towards the end, but not all,
And don't you get a little scene of him like turning into Demise's sword?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Which brings us to Demise, I guess. I remember when his character art first like leaked out, and I'm like, whoa. Like, literally, you're fighting this giant monster whose hair is on fire. He's got this wielding giant sword. Love his design. That boss battle, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just the only negative I would say about him is that it's, where was he the whole game? Like, what was he? They kind of, it was kind of, he doesn't have that development.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I think it's about Girahim. Because he's talking about he wants to revive his master, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like that, his master is just kind of this being of pure evil, and he's like, you're my sword now. It's like,
yeah,
it's kind of a unfortunate story. It's like kind of the opposite of Fi's story.
Yeah, I would say that. By the end of it, it's sort of, it sets the course for the entire series. Mm-hmm. Like, there will always be this never-ending good versus evil. I will just keep resurrecting myself every couple 1,000 years or 100 years, mm-hmm. And it basically says Ganondorf is Demise.
Yeah.
And all the villains are just a reincarnation of Demise, mm-hmm. in a way. And some people think that's kind of just a scapegoat or something, but I wonder if they're ever going to go back to Demise. Not so much him being a character, but even mentioning him.
Yeah.
He's kind of like forgotten a little bit.
If you were to track the story, there's a point where it is all Ganondorf
right,
all the time.
Why is there not Calamity Demise?
Well, I guess that brings us to Breath of the Wild. We kind of talked about it a little bit.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about Master Koga and the Yiga clan?
Oh, they're just, are they villains? They're like comedy relief at some point.
Yeah. They're fun though. I'll throw that out there. They had the potential to be maybe cooler than they were. But they're fun.
The whole bananas thing.
Yeah.
They're like running for the banana. Oh god, that's precious.
A lot of people were disappointed with the battle with Master Koga, but it's kind of funny.
I think I have a negative view of the whole Yiga clan because of how frequent they appear in the overworld after you beat them.
It's so annoying, yeah.
I guess we didn't really mention Yuga and Yuga Ganon from Link Between Worlds.
Sorry, we skipped them.
Yeah, for all the Yuga fans out there.
It's fine. No, I like the little one-offs, even if it's like that character was a little bit more developed than maybe your average one, but it wasn't that interesting,
They went almost in the direction of Ganon. It was like this combined being. Like, at that point, I would have just rather seen Ganon. Yuga Ganon doesn't do it for me.
So those were our favorite, or all of, the Zelda villains. If we forgot some, sorry.
Yeah, there's like Dark Link or something, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Who's the villain in Zelda 2?
Yes.
Okay. Thunderbird. Jinx. Let us know if we forgot someone, or who's your favorite, or what was the Bellum?
Yeah.
Well, the Bellum army.
The Bellum band.
The Bellum band. Get mad at Moss if you want. At Mossies the Great on Twitter if you want to send hate.
Hate mail.
Let us know other topics you want us to discuss, and check out some of our other videos. Subscribe. Thanks for watching.